Why does Trey Lance get so much frickin' hate? We're going to talk about that and more next. All right, welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's Tuesday, which means I got my guy, So Real, Suneil. What's up, Suneil? How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. Jesse, do you see something that's missing right in this area right here and the garb and all that kind of stuff? We set out a challenge, get me to 900 and I'll be decked out like a lumberjack this episode. I am not, because we didn't. So close, about 40 followers away to be able to do it. So we'll do it one more week. And then next Tuesday, I'll come out with the lumberjack outfit for the whole show, if the fans could do their job and get us to 900.
I'm a little disappointed, to be honest with you. I expected to see you wearing the lumberjack hat. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get you to 900. I'm glad you're giving this show another week to help you get there. But yeah, man, I was hoping that lumberjack hat would come out strong in this week's show, but maybe next week. We'll see. You're extending it. Let's say what's up to the chat real quick. It's funny because I made this video. I think I made the template to this video at some point yesterday, and immediately people are like giving their opinions on why Trey Lance is hated. A lot of people talking about racial biases. Chris Sims saying what he had to say. There's a lot going on here. I got a couple people in here asking about, have you ever done a show with Rob Shue, I assume? I do like watching you on Grant Show. Record, do you have the... Well, actually, okay, so as far as Rob, yes, Rob and I have done a couple shows together, and we have not done one in quite some time. Maybe we'll have to link up again, but I will say this, as far as record, I think we're going to get into that a little bit later. Suneil, I got a little surprise for you. We didn't talk about this, so I'm going to save that till the very end.
Ooh.
But let's jump into these topics. We'll get to the surprise at the end and see how you handle a little monkey wrench being thrown your way. I think you'll be just fine. I'm not too worried about it. I feel like you're a professional. All right, y'all. So this show is billed as why does Trey Lance get so much hate? But I think there are some topics, and Suneil, you came up with some really good ones that lead into maybe why he gets so much hate and why he's so scrutinized. So let's jump into those first. The first one is why a starter should be named, and really, what are the 49ers missing out on by naming a starter? Why so much hedging your bet around this Jimmy Garoppolo thing, Trey Lance thing? If they name a starter, is there anything that they risk? If they don't name a starter, what is being risked? Break it down for us.
Yeah, and as far as I think the biggest thing is, and this has been kind of the confusion between what I call the faithful, obviously the fan base, and just what the team's MO and this regime's MO is. And that is the team's MO, Shanahan, Lynch, ever since they've been in charge of the 49ers, they don't necessarily care about media narratives, fan narratives. They're very much just, we care about what's going on in this building, what we can control, and everything that we can't control or everything that's being said, that noise doesn't affect what we're doing here. And we've seen that on a multitude of occasions, most notably the whole Mac Jones, where everybody and their mother was saying Mac Jones was going to be the pick at number 3. And it was our guy here, Jesse, that was one of the few that were like, let's take a minute here. This guy, Trey Lance from NDSU, actually fits a lot of what Kyle Shanahan is looking for and what the 49ers run. And it ended up being him. So I say that to say why a starter isn't necessarily named is because this team is all about competition. they want training camp to be a competition. This is a blue collar team. It's not full of all of these like divas, like maybe some other teams. It's not Hollywood like the Rams. It's very much get your lunchbox, get your hammer, your hard hat, and let's go to work. Right? The way this team is built is through the trenches, hard work, power running attack, all these types of things. So they want training camp to be all about competition. So they don't want to anoint anybody anything. And so even if all of us look at Trey Lance as he is going to be the starter, and they've basically been as clear as Shanahan and Lynch will ever be about naming a starter in what we're in May of the year. But they still want Trey Lance to know you still got to earn this. Like you still got to show in training camp that you've put in the work and done all of this. And I think that's really what it is. I think it's just the fan base, the media that wants this. So there's no like quarterback controversy or whatever the case may be, like there was last season. But as far as just what the team is looking, that's what I identify it as. Don't anoint anybody. Go out there and earn the job.
Do you think there's any risk in that?
I mean, the risk is what we're already seeing, right? You're seeing guys on Twitter saying that they don't believe in Trey Lance. You're seeing Lombardo, Chris Sims. You're seeing all of these like now narratives being created, and they're pointing back to, well, look, Jimmy G is still on the roster, and that's all they're really pointing to because it isn't. I mean, I laid this question out on a debate that I was having over Twitter with somebody who shall not be named right now. But this whole thing, well, Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the roster, so obviously they don't believe in Trey Lance. Well, I went back and said, where in the history of the NFL has there ever been a starting quarterback, somebody that you saw as your starter, being openly shopped the way Jimmy Garoppolo is, to the point where the general manager has said, we were very close in trading him, but this surgery stop that. And your coach saying that's why we're actively shopping Jimmy Garoppolo because of what we've seen out of Trey. When has that ever happened? Like, if you have a starting caliber quarterback, you're not trying to trade him. The only other starting caliber quarterback that I've seen traded that I could remember just offhand was Peyton Manning. And that was because they had Andrew Luck and there wasn't any quarterback controversy. It was like, he's just getting traded. Unfortunately, Jimmy had a surgery in the offseason. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about this right now. So I think that's the biggest downside, and we're already living through it, Jesse. So at this point, what does it matter?
Yeah, I think my biggest thing with this is not so much for you or I, right? Or even the fan base. It comes down to what is being told to Trey, right? So that's the most important piece. And I feel like I talk about leadership a lot. That comes up on my shows quite a bit. If you watch any sort of my shows, I've talked about leadership all through last year. I talk about leadership quite a bit because it's important to me. Leadership is a life trait, and football is a game within life. But these are still people, regardless of how much money they make, if they play a sport, what have you. To me, this is a leadership moment for Kyle Shanahan to pull Trey aside and let him know, hey, you're our starter. You're our future. We believe in you. Now, we're not going to know if that's being said. And I'm not saying it has or hasn't. But if it's not being said or it hasn't been said, A, I would be a little bit surprised. And B, I would be disappointed because the way I look at leadership is it's reverse poker. When you play poker, you're trying to take as many chips as possible away from your opponent. But in leadership, you're trying to give chips to your employees, or in this case, your team. Because at some point, you're going to have to look them in the eye and ask them to go all in. It's going to be fourth quarter, hard fought game, playoffs, and you're going to need to be able to look your players in the eye, grab them by the helmet, and ask if they can go all in for you to go win you a game. And if you haven't given them those chips necessary to do so, in my opinion, they're not going to be able to do that for you. So this right here, to me, is a way for Kyle Shanahan to invest in Trey Lance's piggy bank to make sure that this kid understands that Kyle Shanahan, the leader of this organization, believes in him 100%. I hope that that's happened behind the scenes. if it has not happened, I believe that there is a risk that you are not ruining Trey, because I believe Trey Lance is built tough. I believe he's built for this league. That being said, I feel like you're stunting his growth a little bit if you are truly going to be having a competition or you're not going to be naming a starter. So let's switch gears a little bit, because Jimmy Garoppolo is still on this roster and it's the beginning of May. So before I get to the rest of what I have to say, do you think there's any chance that Jimmy starts for this team come week 1?
Only if somehow Trey gets hurt in the next couple of weeks. So
Okay.
the only way that Jimmy Garoppolo starts for this team is there's some kind of, God forbid, let's knock on wood, because don't want to wish that on anybody. But the only way is if Trey Lance has some kind of injury that causes him to miss ample time, to start the season for whatever reason. That's the only way I could see Jimmy Garoppolo playing for this team as a starter. And I want to go back, Jesse, to your leadership comments, because, obviously there's no way for us to absolutely know if Shanahan has told Trey Lance, hey, you're the guy. However, there's a lot of keys that make it seem like that is what it is. By the way, that's an awesome thing that Stuart just said right there. But I want to talk about the draft, right? So there was a story that came out that when Drake Jackson got drafted, that Trey Lance went out of his way to get his number and text him congratulations for being on the team. That's not something a backup quarterback does. That's something your starter does. And so to me, that was what I needed to know, that Trey Lance believes that this is his team, right? He's taking over the reins, because you're not getting a tweet from the backup quarterback saying, welcome to the team, we're excited to have you here. You're getting that from the captain of your team, which is usually the starting quarterback. So for me, that's enough for me to believe that he's been given all indications that he's the starter moving forward.
I don't know what Terror Dome's doing, but he's taking it upon himself to name a lot of really horrible quarterbacks that have played in the NFL.
He's talking about guys that have been traded as starters, but I think he missed the point of what I was saying, meaning that there was a quarterback controversy and that you were just shopping a guy that you would have held as your starter. That doesn't happen. Like, what I'm saying is, if you believe this guy's going to be your starter, you're not in the press talking about we're ready to trade him. In my mind, that's something you're doing to somebody that isn't your starter anymore. So that's when I bring up Peyton Manning. Obviously, Peyton Manning went and won a Super Bowl, so he could have been the starter. Indy saw him as not the starter anymore. They wanted to go with Andrew Luck, and that's when they traded him. This is that kind of situation for me, where they don't see Jimmy Garoppolo as a starter. That's why they're willing to trade him.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. I was like, he's just like naming a bunch of random, really crappy quarterbacks. Like, I like it. Some of the names, Scott Mitchell, Jake Delhomme, that was interesting. But okay, so you talked about Jimmy and you said the only chance that he starts is that, okay, what are the chances he's on the roster come week 1?
I say a very good chance.
Okay.
Because at this point, the money is the money. And I think they either, I just don't think the egos of Lynch and Shanahan for going as hard as they did, as far as stating that they would never just cut Jimmy, or guys like Jimmy just don't fall out of trees and stuff like that they would just cut him. I think that their ego would keep him. And then, like I said, if there's an injury to another quarterback, somehow in the first half of the season, I think that's when they make a trade to a team that needs a starting caliber quarterback, and Jimmy's just sitting there on the bench.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you one more question, because it's kind of going to round out my whole point here. What are the chances that they have a legitimate QB competition and make Trey earn the starting job?
What do you mean, like legitimate, meaning both of them are? I think it's a legitimate QB competition if both of them are in training camp, because at the end of the day, Jimmy Garoppolo isn't going to just be like, oh, I'm not going to play the best that I can in training camp. He's going to he knows he's either auditioning for the 49ers or auditioning for somebody else that might trade for him. So he's going to give it his best shot. I just personally think that it's not going to be a competition because Trey Lance is going to be much better than him. He's been working out all offseason. He's been creating chemistry with the receivers on the team, and Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings and stuff like that. I just think that I just don't believe Jimmy Garoppolo can come after 3 or 4 months of not being able to throw the ball and just compete with a guy who's younger, stronger, more athletic that has been working out hard this whole offseason. I just don't think it's going to be that much of a competition. But as far as quote-unquote competition, it'll always be there. I think even if Sudfeld somehow turns into Willie Beeman, like he could get the starting job. Like at the end of the day, Shanahan is going to play whoever he thinks is going to be the best quarterback to get him to win. I just personally believe it's going to be Trey Lance, regardless of who's in training camp.
I do too, by the way. I agree with everything you said. Here's the one issue that I have. If Jimmy is here, I do believe that they make it an open competition, right? On paper, whatever that looks like. What concerns me is that means Jimmy starts eating into Trey's reps. Because the one thing that we all agree with Trey Lance is that he's a little raw, right? He hasn't played a lot of football, especially over the last couple of years, and he needs to get more football under his belt. So even if Trey Lance wins the job, and let's say he's the guy that they want to win the job, if they take any reps away from him with that first team just to showcase Jimmy or even to compete with Trey, I think you're doing Trey a disservice. That's the concern that I have. And, it goes back to all of last year. I said that the Patriots did the right thing in getting rid of the problem before it became a problem. That was getting rid of Cam Newton before it even became a competition and just giving it to Mac Jones. Everybody talks about Trey Lance and how he wasn't ready, right, to be the starter. And you could see that by the way that he played in week 5 against the Cardinals. Well, yeah. But if you had given Trey, I don't know, mid-May and told him, hey, you're our guy, you're taking every first team rep, you don't think that he would have grown astronomically by week 1 and been closer to being ready? He probably would have looked as good or better week 1 than he did week 5, right? And week 17, the way that he looked against the Texans, in my opinion, he probably would have been there by week 5 or 6, and it would have only been growth from there. But they didn't give him those reps. So if they do that again going into year 2, that to me is where I have a concern. I don't care what they do with Jimmy Garoppolo. I would prefer that he's not on the roster just because I think there are some locker room things. Also, you can roll that $25 million over next year and it basically creates $50 million. I think that's a big deal. And if they don't take that opportunity, I think that is a major, major mistake. But the biggest mistake that they can do is give an actual open competition and take reps away from Trey Lance. I think that would be a major, major miscalculation.
Yeah, and I mean, I think last season, from what I saw, because I wasn't at training camp, but obviously we're blessed enough to talk to guys that were there quite often in Jack and Grant. It seemed like even though there was like an open competition last season, it still was kind of like 50-50 with the reps. And I do believe that that's probably close to, even if Trey is the starter, I still think that, he's not going to necessarily, I think Sudfeld is still going to, be there to take reps and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, you don't want to burn out somebody's arm through training camp. So I don't know how many reps, quote unquote, are going to be taken away, because he got every chance, I believe, to be a starter last season. So I don't know if that narrative that he didn't get enough reps is the reason why he wasn't ready. That's kind of where I would maybe push back a little bit. I just think that, even after listening to your interview with his QB coach, it just seemed like because he had been so far removed from football for so long due to the COVID year, that a redshirt year was going to be what's best for him regardless. So I just believe that he was just going to have issues if he started last season, regardless of if he took all the reps or not. I do agree with you. He constantly is getting better. I think that we're going to see even a bigger leap now that he is way more comfortable with the playbook. He has more confidence in his players. The team has seen what he's capable of. So I don't know if there's going to be as many locker room issues. You see him hanging out with Kittle and, going to Warriors games and, Kittle's buying him birthday presents. And, I think a lot of the locker room, all these things are narrative that the outside's looking in. I don't know how much is it from the inside there. So I don't really think there's going to be that big of an issue. At the end of the day, man, this team just wants to win. They've been close so many times. They just want to win a Super Bowl, and whomever's going to get them there is going to be who they ride with. And I think everybody's kind of made the choice that it's going to be Trey at this point. So it's just a matter of time.
Shout out to Wayne Breezy, by the way. He's in the chat.
Yeah.
Wayne's one of our favorite dudes. I love Wayne. Wayne and I have done a couple of shows together, both on his channel. I need to get him over here. Stop being selfish. Both times I've been on Wayne's channel, I've had an absolute blast. He and I went on, I think it was a week or two before the draft. I think it was about 2 weeks before the draft. Absolute chemistry on the mic for sure. He and I had a lot of fun. I've got to get him over here. But I don't want to just bring you on to bring you on, Wayne. I want to make sure there's something worth talking about. So maybe as we get into training camp and those types of things, that'll be a good time for us to link up over here. But we'll definitely make it happen. Go give him some love if you have not done so already.
And Jesse, while we're on Wayne Breezy, I know there's a lot of people that watch this show. Wayne Breezy's Instagram got hacked. So his original Instagram is Wayne Breezy. Do not unfollow that. We're trying to make a movement to get Wayne Breezy's original channel down to 0. His new Instagram is Wayne Breezy 2, the number 2, Wayne Breezy 2. So go subscribe to him on Wayne Breezy 2. Unsubscribe to Wayne Breezy. And I know you're not a big Instagram guy, Jesse.
On Instagram, let's be clear, not on YouTube. Do not unsubscribe to this man's YouTube.
Yeah. On Instagram.
All right. Tom Jensen says, at Jesse, what's Lynch's mountaintop? Getting his price in a trade for Jimmy. It's his top priority, above Lance's development, above the team's needs. Therefore, this is dysfunctional goals. What do you think of that? That's interesting.
Yeah, and once again, I think that the outside looking in is different from what's actually going on the inside. If you just look at what Jimmy Garoppolo is doing, he is not acting like he's about to be the starting quarterback for the 49ers. He's doing all kinds of interviews, basically trying to raise his stock or talk about, how it's not an ideal situation. He's not talking like, hey, I'm ready to go in. We're going to have a great season. We're going to go fight for a champion. That's not what Jimmy Garoppolo is saying at all. He knows he's not the starter. Trey's texting draft picks. He's going to games with Kittle. He's, getting all of these messages from guys on his Instagram. I just think this is a lot of just narratives that we're creating because it's not what we want to happen, but we're not in there with the actual conversations. I think one thing about this team, at least this regime, is even though they don't talk a lot to the media, it seems like they talk a lot to the players. You've never heard a player say, I don't know what this team thinks about me, or they just left me in the dark. No, even with Jimmy, they've been very transparent with him. And that's something he said, even though they were flirting with other quarterbacks while he was here. So I don't think that all of a sudden that has changed. I think everybody knows exactly what's going on and there's no confusion. The only confusion is through the media and guys like us that don't know what's being said behind closed doors.
That's fair. I'm trying to look up something real quick, salary cap wise, because I want to explain this and I want to make sure I do it in a sophisticated way and it comes across as intelligent and not just me rambling. So hold on a second. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Because it's going to answer a question. Yeah, go ahead.
I think Jimmy's contract doesn't become fully guaranteed till week 1. So training camp, it doesn't become fully guaranteed. I think it's week 1 when the season starts. That's when Jimmy's contract becomes fully guaranteed. So if they cut him anytime through training camp, I think that they still recover all of that $25 million. That's to my
Yes, unless he's injured, then it's the same problem they have now, which is the $7.5 million. But I want to show this to people because I've talked about this a lot, and some people, for some reason, I get a lot of pushback on this. Like people don't believe that this is the way the salary cap works. Every time I talk about it, I've got people, on the show commenting that I'm wrong, or I've got people on Twitter saying I'm wrong, or coming to spaces to debate me on this. So I want to actually show this real quick. I'm gonna stop share screen and share this one instead. Hold on. Okay. All right, let me remove this overlay real quick too, because it looks really funny with the overlay. And I want to explain this to people and why getting rid of Jimmy is so important versus just keeping him on this roster. So, all right, hopefully everybody can see this. So remember these numbers real quick. Jacksonville Jaguars. So the salary cap is not the same for every team. What happens is teams have to spend, I believe it's 89% of the salary cap. So let's say, we'll just use a round number. The salary cap's $200 million. Well, they would have to spend 89% of that, which is what, 178 million of that 200 million. Whatever you don't spend and you stay under this year, you get to add on to your salary cap next year, which means you're essentially doubling that number. Well, if the 49ers were to get rid of Jimmy before week 1 and not touch a single dime of that, so $25 million, they actually get $50 million to play with next year because you're saving the $25 million from him not being on the roster, which you're going to save anyways because he's not on next year. So it's $25 million there. But you get to go over the salary cap next year because you didn't spend that $25 million this year. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Jacksonville Jaguars right now have $218 million spent. All right. Their team salary cap this year that they get to play with is $234 million. So even though they've spent $218 million, they still have $15 million in cap space, right? So they've spent $218, they have $15. Let me show you the 49ers. Hold on. So remember, they've spent $218, they have $15 to play with still. The 49ers have spent $7 million less than the Jaguars, yet they have less than $1 million to play with. That's because they rolled over, I believe, under $1 million to go into this year to add to their salary cap. So whenever you hear somebody talking about doubling your money, this is what we're talking about. Absolutely. There is a hard cap in the NFL. That being said, you can technically go over depending on the money that you saved the previous year. And I believe the Jaguars were the team that saved the most money from last season. They were the most under the salary cap. I think they were actually pretty close to around $25 million. So that's why they are able to go over the way that they are. And even though they've spent way more than the 49ers, they actually still have a lot more room in the salary cap because they rolled money over. That's why I talk about getting rid of Jimmy before week 1 is so important. So hopefully that clears things up for people. I know there's a lot of confusion. I don't claim to be a salary cap expert by any means. That is one thing that I certainly do know, and I know it pretty well. And so I wanted to give a visual so that everybody hopefully can understand that there is a reason to get rid of Jimmy and not carry him over. Because yes, you're going to save his $25 million, but you can turn that 25 into 50 if you do it properly.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think
did I explain that okay? Did that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And, I think both of us believe that, if Jimmy wasn't on this roster, it made things a lot more simple. But for whatever reason, the front office and this brass is, wants to play that game of chicken. So no matter how much we scream that Jimmy should be gone and give all these reasons like you're giving, for whatever reason, Shanahan, John Lynch, they all have some kind of plan that we just don't see. And we're still waiting for it to come to fruition, I guess.
Yeah, well, let me put it to you like this. If they had done this last year, Suneil, and rolled that money over and they had, I don't know, an extra $50 million to play with right now, Imagine going to Debo and saying, "Hey, we're going to give you 50 million guaranteed. We're going to do it in year 1. We're just going to knock that out right away. The next 3 years, he basically has no guaranteed money. His salary cap number would be extremely low, but he would probably be happy because he got a ton of money up front, more than any of the other guys. And now you've been able to save what he is owed the next 3 years, which means you're giving yourself future money. That's the type of stuff you can do with that kind of money. Normally, teams backload contracts. The reason they do that is because they know the cap is going up. And it's usually because they don't have a lot of money to play with in that current year. So they continue to kick the can down the road. You end up doing things like the Saints, where they have to get rid of really good players. I mean, look at the players that the Saints have lost over the last couple of years. They lost their safety in Williams. They lost who was their left tackle? Armstead. They lost the pass rusher to the Bengals. They've lost some really, really good players because of the salary cap game. It's something you don't ever want to have to worry about. Most teams do play that dangerous game, but there is a way right now that the 49ers really can get ahead of the salary cap and take a clear advantage of the way that the rules are written if they play this out properly. So, Niner by nature, I hope that answers your question. I know that was probably a little bit more in depth than what you were looking for, but I had to get that off my chest because every time I explain it, I get a ton of pushback. And maybe it's because I'm not explaining it properly. Hopefully the visuals helped with that.
And I think just to directly answer his question, if he does get injured and they cut him, they would still, like, that 7.5 million will go against the cap this year, but next year, I guess they would roll over roughly 17 and some change million into the next season, correct?
So what was it again? Give me the
So
figures.
if they do cut him and they have the injury provision still there, they would lose 7.5, but they'd still get to roll over that 17 million and change into next year, correct?
Yeah. So they'd be able to go over the salary cap. They would basically only miss out. So instead of being 50 million essentially they get to play with, it would be 42.5 million. And the reason is because you're going to get that 7.5 back next year, assuming another team can sign him at 7.5 million or higher, if that makes any sense.
Right.
So you're going to double up the 17.5 million plus get an additional 7.5 million back because somebody else hopefully signs him for at least 7.5 to be a backup or compete for a starter job or whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, that's the way it works. Okay, so here's the question. This is what the whole show is built around. Why the hell does Trey Lance get scrutinized so much? Do you have any pulse on this?
I mean, I think it's deep, and to not get too much into the racial aspect of it, because I don't want to just call people out as far as racial. I want to try to put my head in the mind of maybe some guys that actually might have reasons to push back so much. I think the biggest reason is,
well, and let's be clear too. If you do bring up the racial, there is a certain aspect of the racial side of things. Like, let's be clear, right? But everybody does not fit under that umbrella. I think that's a small group of people. I hope it's a small group of people,
right.
But there is a group of people that have legitimate concerns about Trey Lance, or at least they consider them legitimate. So I think it's good that you're going that route, because not everybody fits under one umbrella. There could be multiple reasons for this.
I agree, and for me, the people that are just because of a racial reason is why they're bringing it up. Let's not even acknowledge them, because you can't talk to crazy, right? If you're crazy and that's your reason, there's no point in trying to discuss. So what I think a lot of this stems from is this team has hurt for consistent play and consistent being able to see this team consistently compete. For a long time. It's been over the last 2 decades. There's only been the 2 stints, right? The one stint with Harbaugh and then this stint right now. The Harbaugh stint ended pretty bad because obviously Harbaugh couldn't get and the ownership just didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. But when you look at this team over the last 5 years that Shanahan has been there, the common denominator between when this team was good and when this team wasn't was Jimmy Garoppolo was the starting quarterback. And I think that to a certain part of the fan base, they look at that and rightfully are like, look, when Jimmy Garoppolo isn't our starting quarterback, we aren't very good. When he is the starting quarterback, and that was what the last half of 2017, they went 5-0. 2018 he got injured. 2019 they go to a Super Bowl, and then last year 2020 he was in and out with injuries. 2021 they're a field goal away from going to another Super Bowl. So when you look at that, it's very easy to be like, well, Jimmy Garoppolo equals success for the team. And it's kind of hard to refute that on its face value, because it's true. When Jimmy Garoppolo is the starting quarterback, this team wins. When he isn't the starting quarterback, this team doesn't win. So if you're just looking at it like that, it is pretty black and white. So now you're bringing in a guy with Trey Lance who is unproven, who didn't play at a major school, who hasn't played a lot of football. He's played 1 year as a starter. He averaged 16 passes per play. He played in a division where there aren't like a bunch of starters that come out of the division that he plays in. And so it's just like a lot of these things when you're comparing to being this close to having a Super Bowl championship with this guy, Jimmy Garoppolo, and then bringing in this unproven guy in Trey Lance, unless you're really into looking at the tape, looking at the film, really analyzing why a team wins, why a team loses, what the limitations of quarterbacks are, what the ceilings of quarterbacks are, and just looking at the trajectory of the league, it's easy if you're not paying attention to that to just be like, this 49ers win with Jimmy. They lose when they're not with Jimmy. So why are we trying to get rid of Jimmy? And then automatically the enemy becomes anybody who's replacing Jimmy. And so that's the way I kind of look at it with these guys that are looking at it and being like the Trey hate, is just because they look at elevating Trey as downgrading or diminishing Jimmy, because of that dichotomy that just naturally people put in competition with each other. Where, at least for me, and I know for you as well, it's not that we got to trash Jimmy to say that Trey is going to be the starter and we believe the team could go better. It's not because Jimmy was bad. It's just we think that Trey is going to be better for this team and has a higher ceiling. So that's kind of where I see it, Jesse. I don't know if you see it the same way.
Yeah, I see it very similarly, but I also think the 49ers have to take some culpability here because they've brought this upon themselves, right? They're the ones that have decided to keep Jimmy G not only last year, but not really play Trey. And then again this year, they've kept Jimmy G around, which it allows for rumors, as you said very early on, to be spread about maybe what's going on with Trey Lance. Then the way that they used Trey Lance in that first game against Arizona, I don't think did anybody any favors, right? And I think to your point, the biggest thing that I want to hammer home is most fans are pretty casual, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not a bad thing. I'm not trying to like put you down if that's the category you fall in. Very few people go in and eat, breathe everything sports and 49ers, right? People in this chat right now, what is today's date? May 12th or whatever it is, May 10th. I don't know what the date is. Okay. 10th. May 10th. If you are in this chat May 10th, you are probably not a casual, right? You care enough about the 49ers that you're going to go to a random YouTube channel and get as much content as you can possibly get about the 49ers in the middle of May. You are not the people that we are talking about, right? You people are probably pretty well versed. You do a lot more than the average fan. But I think probably 90% of fan bases, and this is all fan bases, are more of, hey, we show up during the regular season. We root for our team. We make decisions based off of the game that we only saw the one time. And that's how we talk about the game, right? That's where most fans lie. And so when they look at Jimmy Garoppolo and they say, well, we won with Jimmy and we don't win when Jimmy's not here. Well, Jimmy must be pretty good, right? Jimmy's a winner. And so that's where it stems from. And then even worse, even if you are a diehard fan of your team, maybe your team is not the 49ers, right? But you're making assumptions about other players. Do you know how many times I end up talking to other fan bases and they talk about how Trey Lance isn't ready or from what they saw of Trey Lance against whoever that they can't even remember he played. He didn't even look that good. Like that is going around a lot. You've got a lot of other fan bases talking about this kid for whatever reason. I don't know why Trey, ahead of all the other rookie quarterbacks from last year, gets scrutinized or talked about more in other fan bases than he does even some of their own quarterbacks. But that's just the reality of the situation. You have a lot of people, most people are not educated on the situation. Most people look at it and say he came from a small college. He hasn't played a lot of football. Jimmy Garoppolo is still there. Well, he must not be very good. And so, because of that, you've got a small group of people that are diehard fans, that are diehard 49er fans, and go the extra mile to do their homework. And so it feels like it's us, the small group, versus the world, because it kind of low key is. That's exactly what's happening here, because most people are not us assuming and or consuming and talking 49ers football May 10th, 2022. Most people are waiting until September to even care about it.
Yeah, and I think we also have to look at the situation that Trey has been put into. So there's this whole like, why Trey? Why is everybody going after Trey? Because I think to add on to what you're saying, a lot of these quote unquote casual fans, they get more of their news from like national media that is thousands of miles away from the situation. So whenever they're getting information, it's like fourth, fifth, like, it's playing telephone, right? So it's just who's giving what narrative they want to get out there. And they kind of use national media to project whatever they want to project. So it's not like in-depth, guys. It's just like narrative. This is what we heard. Let's just put it out there for clicks or whatever the case may be. But out of all of the second-year quarterbacks, if you look at which team is the best team that's contending for a Super Bowl, even more than the New England Patriots with Mac Jones, Trey Lance is on the best situation of any second-year quarterback. So clearly he's going to be the most scrutinized because the 49ers have been in the top four of the NFL 2 out of the last 3 seasons. They've been to a Super Bowl just 3 seasons ago. They were almost in a Super Bowl this last season. So they don't need to look at Justin Fields and overly scrutinize him because the chances of Chicago making it to the Super Bowl this year are very slim. Trevor Lawrence isn't going to make it to a Super Bowl this year, no matter how great of a quarterback he is, because of the team that's around him. So if you're looking at why they're scrutinizing Trey Lance and seeing, is this guy going to be ready or not ready, it's because the 49ers are one of the favorites to win a Super Bowl. They're one of the favorites to come out of the NFC into a Super Bowl. So clearly the most important position in that is the quarterback position. So I think that's why there's a microscope under Trey Lance. It's kind of, once again, a figment of just the 49ers team that they're so good that having a quarterback is going to be make or break. So they're already kind of comparing it to what they've seen with Jimmy Garoppolo. So regardless of how good Jimmy Garoppolo actually is, this team has gotten far with him. So that's kind of where the scrutiny comes for Trey Lance, is because is he ready to at least get as far as Jimmy Garoppolo, if not, even further? And that's just a story that national media is going to jump on, because when you look at the other teams that are favorites, they don't have the question mark at quarterback. They have a very well-established quarterback. The only team that's a Super Bowl threat that does have question marks at quarterback is the 49ers, which is why you're hearing all the stories about it.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Very, very well said. 49ers first takes. Aaron says, "What's up, Jesse? And my co-host tomorrow, Suneil. Freaking love what you both do for the 49ers community." I'm glad that you're going on with Aaron. I think
I'm
you
excited.
guys will do a fantastic show together. Aaron is a great dude as well. I love Aaron. Check him out at 49ers first takes. If you have not done so already, let me show you some love, Aaron. We appreciate you. I'm trying to find this comment because it was just too funny. Here it is. Oh, good. Thank goodness for this star thing. Eric says, "Is Patreon like OnlyFans? Like, do we get pics of Jesse in a bikini?" No. It's not at all like that. But
It
very
kind of
funny.
is, but kind of
But
not,
not
right?
really, yeah.
It is OnlyFans in the sense that you get premium content from Jesse. It's just gonna be more with his brain than with his body. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, if you're turned on by my brain, then you're gonna love it. If it's my body that you love, probably not so much. Gonna say that. That's awesome. Eric's always hilarious. He contributes in a very positive way. But no, Patreon, it's the same. Swan Song says, bruh. It's exactly the same as being a member of the channel, actually. Essentially what you're gonna get is you're going to get extra content, and it's going to be different than what you get here. It's more film breakdown, that type of stuff. So definitely, whether you join the YouTube channel as a member or you do the Patreon, either way, you're going to get that extra content. But that is a very, very funny comment. All right. I am ready to unveil my surprise for you, Suneil, real quick, which is awkward coming straight off the comment that Eric just dropped. I got to admit, but that's not the route that we're going. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can get this to work here. Let's see. It's saying I'm having some internet connection issues. Hopefully it's not.
Yeah, you've been kind of breaking in and froze a couple times. So
really? Okay. Could you hear me the whole time or no?
Yeah, your audio was clear.
Okay, that's good. As long as the audio is clear, that's all that matters. All right, let's see here. Here we go. Boom. All right, Suneil, here's what we're gonna do. Let me remove this.
Ooh, I'm excited. I see a lot of icons.
There we go. There we go. Okay. Let me get this ridiculous comment off the screen. Jeez. All right.
Hey, it's gone. Hey.
You're blurring out. I know. I don't know. My internet's all weird. Hopefully everything's good now. Hopefully everything's back to where it should be. All right. So that being said, I'm not going to hold
Jesse,
you to this.
Could you might want to delete that ad. I don't know if that's going to affect your stream. If that ad is
yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
They pop up pretty frequently when I use this. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. Okay. But we don't want to give anybody free ad revenue here. That's not the way this works. All right. So here's what I want to do. I want you to choose your 7 playoff teams as it stands now. Again, I'm not going to hold you to this. We'll do it. We can do it again as we get closer to the season, so we have an accurate depiction. Injuries can happen through training camp, what have you, that can definitely change this thing drastically. I'm just curious to see, A, if you have the 49ers making the playoffs, and then once we get to our 7 teams, if you do have the 49ers, I want to see who your top 3 teams are. So,
Gotcha.
7 teams in the NFC to make the playoffs. Which 7 do you have? Maybe we can go division by division if that's easier.
I kind of so I think there's 10 teams that are vying for those 7 positions. Okay. So I'll just put the 7 that I think are going to finally make it. So San Francisco is in there. So you could put San Francisco. Tampa Bay is in there.
Okay.
Dallas.
Okay.
The Eagles.
Oh, 2 teams. Okay, I like this.
They might have 3 teams. Look, because I think Washington is one of those 10, but I don't. In this situation, I don't think they're going to make it. Rams.
Okay, Rams. Oh, here. All right, Rams.
Green Bay.
All right.
And I'm going to actually go with the Vikings as my 7th pick.
Oh, I see. I got killed by my co-host last week when I said that the Vikings, I thought, had an outside shot at the playoffs. He thinks for some reason his Lions have some sort of chance. I know there's some Lions guys in here. I'm sorry to kill you guys on an off night when I'm not going with Rad, but come on, let's be real. Okay, so these are your 7. You don't have the Cardinals making it.
No, I think that D-Hop missing the first half of the season is going to play a bigger role than it did. I mean, once D-Hop was out of that lineup, they weren't the same team. Yeah, so so the best part of their season is always the first half of the season. I just think that, especially with what the NFC West has to play outside of the divisional games, already the division is one of the toughest, right? It's easier now that the Seahawks are there, like not with Russ, but they're just going to have to either play really good interdivisional games against the Rams and the 49ers without D-Hop, and then play, obviously if they're playing the AFC West, those are not an easy night out. So I just think the Cardinals first half of the season is just going to knock them out of contention because, look, I think they're one of the 10 that can make it, but it's going to be the difference between a game or two. So every single game in the season is going to matter. You go on a big losing streak, I think there's enough teams on the bubble that could affect your ability to make it.
Okay, I like it. I think it's bold. I like what you've done here. Do you want to rank these teams 1 to 7 from who you think is the best to the worst?
Yeah.
Or do you just want to go top 3? How do you want to do it?
Do you want to do yours first and then we could rank them?
Well, it's tough because there's only one logo for each team. So if I take mine and move them down, then that's going to mess up the whole thing. So.
Sure. So I actually believe the 49ers are going to be the number 1 seed.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I like that.
So I really think that the way this defense is, they fixed, I think their special teams is going to be better. As long as Trey plays the way that I believe he's going to play, I think this is just the toughest team to beat. I think this is the most from top down, most complete team, not only with the starters, but also the depth. This is one of the most deep teams in the league. So they're going to be able to still be competitive, even sustaining injuries that other teams, like, for example, the Rams, a couple of their starters go down. Now they're having real big issues because they haven't been able to replenish that depth. So I just think the 49ers, and obviously this is Trey Lance staying healthy, all that kind of stuff. I think that they're the number 1 seed. I believe Tampa Bay will be the number 2 just because of their division that they're playing in. They have, 2 teams that aren't really that competitive. I think the Eagles are going to win their division. Okay. And then I think Green Bay wins their division.
Okay. All right. And would you say the Rams are better than the Cowboys and Vikings? Is that fair?
Yeah. Okay.
So is this probably the order you'd go in, or would you swap?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Eagles and Green Bay, that those could switch up, but for the most part, I think it's something like this.
Okay. I love the optimism. I completely agree with you, by the way, that the 49ers are the most complete team. I just don't think they're the best team, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But I'm going to carry most of these teams over, actually. I do think that these are the division winners. I think the Rams make it as well. I do not have the Cowboys, however, making it.
Ooh.
I have the Saints making it.
Okay.
And I have the Vikings making it.
Wow. So we're
the only
close.
the only team I'm changing is the Saints for Dallas. I think the Saints also have a very good team. They were right there on the verge of making the playoffs last year, and that was with shaky quarterback play at best. That was with no receivers. Now they've got weapons at receiver. They've got Jameis back. Jameis isn't the best quarterback, but he was looking pretty efficient last year. And if he can just stay healthy, then I think that they should be good enough to make the playoffs. Now, my concern with them is Kamara, I believe, is also going to be getting suspended. So that certainly does hurt. But getting Thomas back, I think they took – who'd they take? They took Olave, I believe.
Chris Olave, yeah. So they have a good receiving core there.
Yeah, so I think that they'll be pretty good. Plus, the division for the most part is also pretty weak. I'm almost with you on San Francisco being the best overall team. I have to put the Buccaneers ahead of them just because I think the Buccaneers have a pretty complete team as well. I think they do have more holes than the 49ers, but no matter how you slice it, I love Trey Lance. And I think Trey Lance is going to be a bona fide top 7 quarterback in this league for many, many years to come. That's just not going to happen right away. And because of that, you've got Tom Brady, who is the best quarterback of all time, playing arguably somehow his best football this late in his career. That to me is the ultimate tiebreaker. And so But this could go either way. Now, these two teams do have a matchup during the regular season, and it is in San Francisco. Depending on where that game falls, if the 49ers can win that game, they can take that number one seed. And if that happens, that would be huge. But I think, I'm not going to go necessarily 1 through 7 seed, but just who the best teams are. This is where I am at. I'm going to go here. I'm actually going to go here. And yeah, that's 1 through 7. Now, not necessarily seeds. That's probably the best teams in the NFC in my division, or excuse me, in my opinion. I just think that San Francisco has done enough to overtake LA. Let's not forget that the 49ers have beaten them 6 straight times. They were basically 3 points separated them. They've gotten better almost everywhere this offseason, other than offensive line. And I know that's a big, one to miss. But the Rams have gotten worse on the offensive line. They've gotten worse on the defensive line. They've stayed relatively the same everywhere except for linebacker. I just think that the Rams have not gotten any better. They've gotten slightly worse. The 49ers have certainly gotten better. So in my opinion, they are the team in the NFC West to beat. So we're actually pretty close there, Suneil. Not too far off.
Yeah. The only thing I think are wild cards for Tampa Bay and also the Saints. You brought up Alvin Kamara, but then both of those teams have brand new head coaches. And even though those teams have maybe some continuity, especially Tampa Bay, obviously the team is very similar. Still having a rookie head coach, there has to be something said for those late game decision making, keeping the locker room intact. Like there's a lot more responsibility. So a guy like Bruce Arians leaving the building as far as the head coach, bringing in, I think is Leftwich the head coach there now, or I forget.
No. It's the other guy. It's their defensive coordinator, but he's been a head coach before. He just wasn't successul.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. Like obviously, you have a lot of veteran presence there, so maybe it makes it an easier transition. But I think the continuity with the 49ers still having their head coach there, same defensive coordinator, all of the major coaches are still intact. I just give them the edge as far as continuity there, because I do think coaching matters, even though you have like the talent there. I just don't think I think the Saints have to overcome a lot with a new coach, new quarterback, missing your best weapon in Alvin Kamara. That's why I would put another team over there. But Saints, the Washington Commanders, Arizona Cardinals are the 3 teams that we're outside looking in, but they can make, the top 7 as well, depending how the season goes. I think there's a viable 10 teams in the NFC that are going to be contending for those 7 spots.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I just think Tom Brady's just too much of a veteran to let them lose. The reason that I'm okay with the Saints is that, and somebody Swan Songs makes a great point. They certainly did. They lost their left tackle. They also lost their starting safety, but they did bring in Tyrann Mathieu. The Saints seem to always have pretty good depth on the offensive line. They always draft very well there. So, we'll see what happens there. But I think when you're getting to those bottom couple teams, there's really, to Suneil's point, probably 10 teams that legit could make the playoffs. It's just a matter of choosing your favorite at this point. And although the Saints do have some turnover at the coaching position, they're still running the same offense. They're still running the same defense. They still have the same defensive coordinator, I believe. And so there should be some continuity there. But yeah, you're right. I mean, having a first-time head coach in the Saints situation, that's a big deal. So who is it? Is it Bowles?
Todd Bowles, yeah.
Yeah,
Bro,
I get him.
We should do
I
the
get
AFC
him and the Rams
too.
one mixed up. We can at some point. I just think, I mean, now we're just at the hour mark, so we'll get out here soon. But more importantly, I care about the 49ers, so I just wanted to see if you had to make them. Because here's the problem: I've seen a lot of people doing these lists and posting them all over social media, like big time blue check marks. None of them have the 49ers making the playoffs. It's crazy. That's how out they are on Trey Lance for whatever reason. And so I cannot wait until Trey Lance plays well, and the 49ers are rolling just fine, so that we can just end all of this. I'm so over all this scrutiny in his direction.
Well, I understand why the media is so out on Trey Lance, because they hitched their wagon to Mac Jones going to the 49ers at 3. And then the 49ers brass, especially Shanahan, they were pretty nonchalant with the media and kind of rubbed it in their face that you guys thought we were doing this the whole time. Why would we tell you that you're doing something wrong? Like, it's not our job. So I think that to get back at him, obviously Trey Lance turning out to be the right choice and, you know, going on and having a lot of success is a slap right in the face of all of these guys, you know. And there's some big name guys that were out there saying, you know, Mac Jones is the pick at number 3. They were wrong, and now they can't. Their egos won't allow them to just be like, "Hey, we were wrong. Maybe Trey is the guy." No, it's more. They would rather it be Mac Jones is better than Trey Lance. Trey Lance can't have any success, so they got to create the narrative to help out their egos in the long run. At least that's what I believe from the outside looking in.
I think that's actually a really good point. And let's talk about egos for a second. Kyle Shanahan has an ego himself, right? And so I think he would love nothing more than to give a big FU to everybody and Trey Lance to show out and be that guy. Because if Trey Lance is not that guy for whatever reason, it's going to be Kyle Shanahan that's held responsible. And so he's hitching his wagon to Trey Lance's success, not only in the sense of if Trey Lance isn't a good player, they don't win long term, he may lose his job, but more so in the ego side of things, which I think plays very big into this. I think that's a great point that you bring up. And 49ers Breakdown says Jesse is absolutely the man when it comes to Niner info and a fresh perspective on all things 49ers. I appreciate the hell out of that comment, but I want to throw it back to Suneil because I think he just brought up a great point and a fresh perspective that may be an angle that we haven't actually looked at before. So I think that was a great point by you.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. That being said, Suneil's channel link is down in the description. Make sure you subscribe so he has to wear a stinking lumberjack hat next week. That would be fantastic. If you are not subscribed here, we're a few away from, I believe, 5,400. We've been kind of sitting stagnant. It's the off season. Let's help the channel grow. If you appreciate the content here, if you spend your time here anyways, just hit subscribe. It's free to do. Appreciate each and every one of you. Love each and every one of you. Chris Royal coming in at the last minute says, I'm sorry, but if Jimmy G can lead our team to win the division, so can Trey Lance. I have zero doubts about that. Chris, I'm with you. I have zero doubts about it as well. Suneil and I both just gave our division breakdowns. We both had the 49ers as a top 2 team in the NFC. That's with Trey Lance starting. So both of us have zero doubts as well. But again, everybody in the chat, everybody that contributes, every single show, nothing but love for you. Appreciate y'all. Have a fantastic night. We out.